Good morning, everybody. And this is Sarah Levis from the Edge team for another edgy conversation. And I have with me today Sandie Howell, who's going to tell us about a number of things that her community of faith. Remind me, Sandie, which community of faith are you from?
It's Crescent Fort Rouge United Church in Winnipeg.
Right. A number of things that they have done to expand the use of their building and their outreach into the community with the arts and theater and programs for seniors and youth and children and a whole bunch of things. Sandie, so great to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Mostly people want to know, well, where did this get started? How did you make decisions about what to do? And so I'll start there. As with many churches, many types in many countries, we felt in around 2012 that our demographic was rapidly aging and declining. Our volunteer capacity was thus becoming also limited. And at the same time, operational costs were taking a sharp turn upwards, as they continue to do in the year 2023. So we began looking at that time about, well, what can we do? By 2015, we had done enough research, if you will, which indicated to us that more of the same that we have been doing for many decades was not going to be the answer. And we had researched other churches in Canada and the United States that had turned in a different direction and felt that they were heading into a successful future. The main characteristic that we keyed on was that you sort of have to break down the church walls, if you will. You have to begin to reach in an earnest way outside of yourself into the community surrounding you. So that was the key characteristic that most churches who were doing things differently and successfully were claiming. To that end, what we did in 2015 is we began to do research, both with our congregation as well as key community partners in the actual neighborhood that we lived in. And so we did focus groups, or what you would call needs assessment. What do you see as needed? And certainly with the church, we wanted to say, what are key things for you? What do you see the future as value-wise for yourselves? And it returned some very interesting results. At the time, as with many other United churches, we have green space around us, and we happen to exist in a very densely populated urban area. And thus, we could have sold it all for quite a significant amount and today be looking at numerous condos. But the church, the congregation itself was very adamant that they value highly the green space in the neighborhood and did not wish that to be turned into additional apartment blocks or condos. So that was one key value from the congregation itself. To that end, they were quite willing to look at a different missional statement regarding their community activities and write it out to see if it works. If not, they were quite happy to turn the keys over and join somewhere else. And, it's a big statement for a congregation, as many listening to me right now are going, what? But that's their decision. And so based on also the interests and the values of the congregation, as well as some of the community needs, we focused in on an external community focus as part of our mission. There are missions related, of course, to the internal church workings itself, and spirituality and worship and those kinds of things. This sits alongside that, if you will. It doesn't replace it. It's a little bit of a different focus. And so what we discovered was that children, youth, and families in the area, 50% of them are living in stressed economic circumstances, higher than percentage seniors living on a lower or fixed income, higher than average percentage of single mothers, of multiple children families, etc. So the church wanted to look at doing something in that respect. In addition, we did not have any meaningful seniors activities in the area. And so for an additional separate stated focus on seniors, it had to be, from the words of the seniors, meaningful involvement. In other words, we're not really interested in you coming out with another coffee and cards morning. We want to be involved in helping with the youth. We want to be involved in gaining skills and learning skills for ourselves. All of this resides on a many decades long characteristic of the church, is that we have long been host to the arts community. Naturally, as with many cathedral-style churches, we have this incredible acoustic offering. And so we already had many choirs who rent from us, okay? And so what else? We also had theater groups who rent a different space for rehearsal purposes. We don't have a theater for actual theater production in performance, but we have a terrific space for theater groups who want to move in at a lower cost for 3 weeks and be in rehearsal right up to their dress rehearsal on site at a more expensive space. And so we already had that presence. We have in the congregation, I think it was clocked at the time as easily 50% of the congregation were musicians, theater people, or visual artists of some sort. So there was a strong interest. The space and the congregation, the building attracts people who have that interest, if you will. And so all of that was the asset and the vision upon which we began to build. And so the first question was, is it actually feasible to increase our activities related to those 3 domains: hospitality to the arts, seniors, and children, youth, and families? The other thing that struck us was there's huge crossover between each of those. The seniors and the children. The seniors wanted to go. We have a resident daycare that we started in the 60s, which is now an independent not-for-profit. But the seniors wanted to go and help with the children there. The artists wanted to help with the children and help with the seniors. So there's this cross-pollination of various interests amongst the 3 pillars of the community focus. And so we began to try things, and it grew and grew. We were enormously fortunate to have the advantage of EDGE's innovation funding in the early days to be able to pilot certain responses. And it was through being able to gain funding like that, also from our own sort of Winnipeg-based church funding. We were able to also get funding to try certain things, some modest amounts of funding. But it gave us the latitude to equitably invite artists to the table. We also don't want to take advantage of artists by asking them to volunteer their time, particularly artists who are working artists who rely on income for their own livelihood. So we always look to that, if you will. So we started out, and lo and behold, we began to attract partners who wanted to stand alongside us in each of these domains and make each of it successful. By developing a strong external partnership methodology, there's an immediate advantage. We remember I said that volunteer capacity was beginning to decline along with the demographic, of course. when you take on external partners, and you're working alongside them in some capacity, you've increased your capacity, you've increased your expertise by relying on their expertise, and you've increased your networks incredibly by annexing yourself to their networks. Okay, and so that became one of the keys to our success, was forming strong partners with people with the same values. And so at the beginning of the partnership, it was always really important to clarify, are we holding the same values? Do we all wish to support community in some way? In other words, our activities are self-serving to a degree, but they're also other-serving. And so that was important to us. The ability to communicate and be transparent was the key also to these partnerships. Ongoing communication and support of each other means that these partnerships thrive today. They're long-standing partnerships now. The other piece of that is when they think of a new major activity, they come to us and they say, would you like to be in on this? Which enhances the use of the church again. And again, the expertise, the external networks, etc. And so we just kept building. We kept focused on what the community needs. It's really easy to sit in a room and brainstorm and say, oh, we should do this, we should do that. But when you're basing what you're doing on people who are coming to you and saying, we need your help, we need this, there's more than enough of that, trust me, to keep you busy all the time. And so we kept expanding, and today we would say that we are successful in that respect. So it's feasible. Okay, feasibility. Was it feasible to expand our activities in this area? Yes, it's feasible. The question now is it sustainable? Okay, so when you get to the place where you now have major performances in your sanctuary and, huge numbers of choirs now coming through, we not only have that going on in the sanctuary, we have an AA group 4 times a week. We have arts programs 4 times a week for adults with intellectual disabilities. We have dance troupes practicing in the gym and upstairs. We have theater groups practicing for weeks on end. We have condo groups who use our space because they can social distance. They use our space and our microphones. Is it sustainable? Who's going to open the door? Who's going to clean? Do we need better sound equipment? All this kind of stuff. Like we have cleaning. Is it 7 days a week? What do we do when we have a major choral group, inclusion arts, doing musical theater in the back and an AA group upstairs, and there's people with instruments running around all over the building and people trying to change into stage outfits, and what do you do about that? You have to consider all of these things. How do they intersect? Is there sound bleed? Is there an expectation of usage of space, but they forgot to book it? How do you sustain all of this increased activity? How do you improve your site so that it allows for professional performance, etc.? These are not things that churches are used to thinking about. So when we're talking about sustainability, it's organic. Like we have improved a lot of that stuff. The most recent thing is a very sad story about one of our churches where a major chamber orchestra had performed for years, but they have an engineering issue about the performance space and no one's allowed in there. So whoops, 11th hour, they were able to switch over to our space, but the chancel isn't big enough for them. So suddenly, out of the blue, we're building extensions to the chancel. Who saw that coming? Who's paying for it? Who's building it? These are the sustainability things that we need to look at. Not to mention what happened in COVID.
Right.
In Manitoba, we had multiple lockdowns. What happened? Because we're a big space, and Winnipeg, although it has the amenities of many extremely large cities, is really a small village in its mentality. We all know each other, and people heard very quickly. The church is willing to provide us with space. We can social distance. We can go in at midnight, because I'm a musician who starts sleeping at 4 o'clock in the morning till noon. I can go in and practice. I can record. I can do this. I can do that. Recognizing that a lot of these people lost their livelihood. And yes, the federal government helped them, but they were in a bad situation. Even in COVID during lockdown, we had close to 3,000 individuals using the church during that time. Social distancing, etc. What did we have to do to further sanitize the space? Do we have usage policies in COVID? Masks, hand sanitizer, it goes on and on. And thus the church has to respond. So those are the things around feasibility and sustainability that need to be considered as you're moving forward. It's all problem solving. If you have a bunch of people that are committed, a good church working team that can speak to each other and can problem solve, it's all quite doable. And how, we see the Spirit moving in all of this. We do. I mean, to see as recently as 6 months ago, a senior look up at me and say, I've never produced a piece of artwork in my life. I never thought I could do something like that, but look what I made. I can do this at home. I mean, to see a child begin to learn the ukulele and all of a sudden say, I think I want to play guitar. I want to learn more of this. Can I play my ukulele? My mom says I can sing. What do you think? The Inclusion Arts Group, they're adults with intellectual disabilities. Twice a year now, they put on plays for the public. To see the audience is astonishing. People weep. It is such a thing of joy. To see the seniors and their jamming groups, their twice monthly learning session, to see them reading to the children, all of those things is how we see the Spirit move in us. As recently as Friday night, I was at a play performed at a professional theater venue, and we had given space to them to rehearse. Not only the performers, but also the musicians that accompanied them. They did not know I was in the audience. They gave a shout out to us about how it would never have been possible without our help. That I actually thought, oh, I'm going to break down crying. This is how we see the Spirit move. We're helping people. We're helping our community to thrive, to be well, to find joy, even in the darkness of COVID, to be able to discover themselves at the age of 70 years and find a new joy, a new high moment in their lives. These are the things that tell us we're moving in the right direction. And we get consistent evidence. Unless we're collecting the evidence of our effectiveness, evaluating how we're hitting the ground. Never a day goes by when I don't hear from numerous partners saying things like, oh, we thought of this. What do you think? We are a community now, and it's a joyous thing. It's a really joyous thing. We continue to, people ask us in the church world, well, has the congregation number increased? Yes and no. Well, I was looking at our church directory from 2020. The number of people, sadly, who have died. It's astonishing to me. And at the same time, we have new members. We have children attending, and some other churches have no children left. We do have children, you know. We largely attract new members because they've been at an arts event, you know, and they stay because they love what the minister is doing. They love the church community itself. And now they're a vital part of our congregation. Well, it serves me as one of the community co-chairs well, because they're also interested in the arts. So, great, new volunteers. It's all connected. It's all connected. So where do we see this going in the future? It's more of the same. It's just more of the same. We know now what it takes, although things arise like stage extensions all the time. We keep refining how we handle these things as we learn and we grow. I don't know what will happen. I have one wonderful man who's been attending this church for about 68 years, and he whispers in my ear all the time, don't forget, most of us won't be here in 20 years. He means the current demographic in the church will be too old or not present on this earth. And what will happen at that time, we don't know. But what we suspect is we will have grown this presence to an extent that there will be somebody from community who wishes to take it on as a community place. This is our vision. This is our hope. In the meantime, we continue to thrive as a community place and thrive as a church and a church community.
What a wonderful story.
Thank
What a
you.
wonderful thing you've created. So many things struck me as I was listening. That you've become a community hub of sorts.
Yes.
That you're giving so many, that you've made the church a center where for people from the community with all sorts of we could say needs. We could say what needs for community can be, and um, that you accomplish that by talking to the congregation about what they saw, their goals or their dreams for the church, but that you also went out directly into the community and asked what their needs were. I had a discussion about that with a person from a church in my own community in Ontario once, and that's kind of going the same way, becoming sort of a hub. And I said, well, how did you do that? And she said, well, we went out and we asked people what they needed.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought, oh my goodness, it really is that simple.
Yes. Yeah.
And and what a wonderful space you've created as a result. I wonder, can you, because I know sustainability is a big topic right now. Can if I can ask, these people that are coming in and using your building, are you charging them to use the building, or are you giving them the space to use?
Yes. In most cases, there is a rental charge, certainly for the sanctuary.
Great.
We look at, I'm going to be a little bit reductionist in describing it. We look at, if you will, a full charge for a firmly established or mature organization or group. And we look at an emerging charge for emerging musicians or theater groups. And then there's a third category, which is actually more of a church-based missional support. So for example, our adults with intellectual disabilities, the church now owns that program. And so
Okay.
there is no charge of any sort for that use. The only thing associated with that is we believe in the use of professional art and musical theater and drama instructors. In other words, it's not me going in and teaching drama because I happen to be available and I'm not a theater person, but rather we bring professionals in to give instruction, and they are paid commensurate with other professional arts programs at other locations. And so the participants pay a fee, but to keep that cost low, we do not ascribe any kind of a usage fee to this space. That's the church is picking that up. But for most of the other groups, there is some kind of a fee. Yeah.
And I mean that's certainly a way to handle it, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
there's no reason why you can't charge for your space.
Well, they always have. It's not a new concept. The other thing that we try to do is, align it with what other churches are doing in the area. There's other churches providing rental space for similar organizations. We're not in competition. Each has its own thing. Each has its own reasons for being there. And so I don't want to undercut or price myself out of the market compared to other spaces. We're the United Church. We're all one community, if you will, if you're looking at it from 80,000 feet. So I think it's important to give that consideration also.
For sure.
At the same time, we've grown to the place where we now understand, in years past, it was like, well, here's the one price. That no longer works. There's the actual usage fee, but you may also need sound technicians. Yes. And so that's an additional thing. We don't just send someone in. There's, depending on the complexity, depending on the size, and if we know you well or not, we may have to also send in something called a venue rep. And so it's a church hired person who opens the doors, provides traffic control, finds the extension cord, says, no, you can't light a bonfire in there, and so that also is an additional fee. We've learned all of this over the last 10 years. So as I said, I was reductionist in setting the prices, but particularly for the large rentals, there's a few add-ons that you learn to add. Yeah.
Learning as you go along. And
yes, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's organic for sure.
And I also love your community of faith's spirit of going at this with an open heart and kind of living in ambiguity a little bit. We'll try this, and if it takes us this way, then that's the way we'll go, or we'll try it and maybe it won't work, but we'll keep trying. That's that kind of spirit of experimentation is it's hard to maintain sometimes, but but look at the places it can take you.
Yeah, and that was their united voice back in 2015. They were very peaceful about it. There was no debate. They were certain this is what they wanted. So, being one of the community co-chairs and having to set out from that moment, it gave me a huge amount of courage to take a few risks, to keep going when, we didn't set this event up right and they're mad. These are the things that happen. This is the reality. But hearing the congregation's voice behind me all the time and behind us, I mean, there's a team of us. It's not just one person. It's a good team. Knowing that voice, knowing that we did the due diligence in determining what their wants and needs and vision were for the future, and watching them step up year after year in support. It's an amazing community of faith. And I think for myself, when things get a little, oh, there's too much to do, or this has gone wrong, I just keep seeing their faces and I keep hearing their voices. And so isn't that the foundation of all of it?
Indeed. Yep. And like you said, we're all on the same team, right? We're all
Yes, we
united.
are.
We're all on the same team.
Yep.
Sandie, that's thank you so much. This is this is this story has really touched me, and I know it'll touch others. And I really appreciate your time today. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Well, first off, thank you. It's kind of nice now and then to take a step back and go, okay, here's where we are. Here's where we came from. So thank you for that. It provides fresh wind in your sails. But I think the crux of this is make sure you're operating from need. Make sure you're good communicators and problem solvers. Form great partnerships and put energy into sustaining partnerships. I think that those are the keys here, and always residing on a strong community of faith that is staying on the ride and keeps nodding and keeps saying, keep going, keep going. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sandie Howell, new friend in Manitoba.
Yeah.
And I'm Sarah Levis, and this has been an EDGEy Conversation, and we'll see you again for the next one. Thanks so much, everyone.